Hi everyone and welcome back to my channel. For those new here, my name is Nicki. I'm an author and an editor and I post videos here on YouTube about writing, editing, books and anything else that takes my fancy. Today we are talking books, of course, because this is part of my crash course in the classics series. Now, I started this series last month. My aim is to post one video a month in which I outline a particular classic author, tell you a little bit about their life and works and give you some recommendations on where to start if you'd like to read them. Now, in addition to my Victor Hugo post back in May, I gave you an introduction to what I was going to be doing in these videos. But it occurred to me that in that introduction I missed one important aspect, which is to do with which editions you want to buy of classics. And so I thought it was worthwhile doing just another short little video on that today for you, because there are a lot of options out there. Some are way cheaper than others, but it just depends what you're looking for from the edition as to which one you want to buy. So I thought I'd give you a little rundown of just a few of the different sorts of editions I've got on my shelf, what I like and dislike about them. Starting us off, these little fellows. Now, I have a fair collection. You'll see a few of them here. I don't know how much you can see on the video, but it goes through two shelves. Now, these I bought back when I was about 13 to 15 or so. I had a big thing about reading the classics in my mid-teens, and I actually read nothing but classics for a 2 to 3 year period. And the ones I was buying were these. Now, these are Penguin Popular Classics. They used to be available in my local discount bookstore, 6 for £5, which was a big draw. So I used to go in, buy my 6, read them, go back, buy another 6. And they are perfectly fine little editions. They were perfectly suitable for me at that time. I just wanted the story. You don't really get a name translator, although in fact as I was glancing at these shelves to do the video, I noticed that most of them are actually English novels to begin with, or written in English, whether they're English or American. Only a couple of them were translations. So I guess it didn't really matter. You didn't have to have a decent translation. It was just, you get the text, plug it in the book and you're ready to go. There's not much in the way of any notes or introduction, discussion of the text, anything like that. So if you're just after the text and you think you're fine without any notes or explanations or anything like that, these books nowadays are the ones you see that come in sort of oranges, I think, and greens. You'll probably have seen them around. Here in Australia we pay about $12, $13 a book for those. If you're in the US and UK you'll probably get them cheaper because you won't have the Australia tax added on the top, where you get charged extra for everything here in Australia. So they're nice little basic editions if that's all you want and you don't think you need any assistance. The same is true of these ones, which are the Dover Thrift editions. The only thing you have to watch with the Dover Thrift is to check whether they're abridged or unabridged. Most of them are unabridged, but you just need to watch out for that. And again, it is just the text. This is a short story, a little mini novella by Dostoevsky. There's not really any introduction. There's a brief note, I think, yeah, just a little brief 2-page note talking just about his background and how it relates to the novel, but that's it. There are no other real notes or any help for you, it's just the text. So then, Dover Thrift editions, I should say as well, you're paying cheaper price for those again. I mean, I think most of these, when I buy them, are around the $6 to $10 mark, I guess. And that's, I mean, I tend to buy these online. You don't really see them in the shops quite so much. So those are your real basic ones. If you move up a little bit, we come to Penguin, but not their basic edition. They're sort of Penguin Classics, slightly more scholarly, I guess is the word we'd use, edition. I have Eugene and Onegin here by Pushkin. So if I look in the book, I have a chronology, I have a preface, I have an introduction, I have a note from the translator, a note on the text, and at the very back I have notes relating to different words or explanations that occur through the text here. So if you're someone who is really keen to read, but you think you might like a bit more background on the story, and particularly some of the language used, then this would be your next step, but you will be paying a little bit more for this one than you will for these. and probably on about the same level and probably around the same price range. And you're probably looking, you know, more like the 20 Australian dollars for this one, 20 to 25, whereas, you know, you're looking more around the 10 to 15 mark for these. Same is true of these. So these are the Oxford University Press Oxford World Classics series. Another very good series, like the Penguin one there, because you get some very nice notes. What do we have in this one? Bibliography, introduction, chronology of Pushkin, a chronology about the uprising that's important for one of the stories in this book, plus the explanatory notes at the end. So again, another very pleasant, pretty scholarly edition. Which brings us to my current favourite editions of classics, which are the Wordsworth Editions. What I love about these is it combines the scholarly approach of the Oxford and the Penguin here, but at a cheaper price mark. Wordsworth Classics, these fellas you can generally pick up for around the $6 to $12 mark. So similar pricing to our cheaper editions here. However, they do include your introductions, your notes, and all the slightly more scholarly things that you might require. I've got Barnaby Rudge here by Charles Dickens. This one actually includes some of the old illustrations for the piece as well. So we have an introduction, we have the illustrations, and we have a few notes, not quite so many notes as in the other books, but you get something and just a little bit of a scholarly introduction. So they're not quite as full-on scholarly as the Oxford and Penguin, but you do get something, you get a bit of information on the translator if there is a translator. Because one of the things that you should watch out for, particularly with some of the sort of 18th and 19th century works, is there were a lot of translations floating around in the Victorian era, not all of them by creditable translators. So it's nice to know who the translator is if it is a foreign work, so that you just get a sense of what you're dealing with. And I mean, really, with the Wordsworth Oxford Penguin, I'm pretty confident about the translations and all of those. So what you might also like is, if you're a real collector, there are some beautiful hardback editions of classics out there these days. So pretty. I wish I had some, but they are the top price mark for you. They're looking at $30 to $40 Australian. And as beautiful as they are, in most cases I've already got copies of the books in other editions, so I haven't really justified to myself spending the money on them at this stage, but certainly they do always catch my eye when I'm in the bookstore. So that's paperbacks or print copies. What if you're more of an ebook reader? So the thing about most of the classics, certainly the 18th and 19th century works, are that they are now in the public domain. This makes getting ebooks in some ways easier, but in some ways a little bit more of a labyrinth to navigate. Of course, you find bought versions of the ebooks from major publishers, and obviously those are going to give you a bit of confidence in what you're getting. I do know, for instance, that on Kobo they usually have a few along the line of Pride and Prejudice and that sort of thing available for free. And so if you're someone who's really like watching the pennies, you want to read some classics, but you're not keen on the idea of spending a lot of money on them until you see how you like them, then there are free ebooks out there. One major repository for such is Project Gutenberg. Now I am on the whole a fan of Project Gutenberg. It collects a lot of old public domain works and brings them all together just for posterity, as it were. And I've actually found one or two pieces on there that I haven't been able to get in any other way. So for that point of view, it's excellent. It's an excellent resource. My only, not warning, but advice on Project Gutenberg, I would say, is that, as I mentioned before, where you have a lot of Victorian era, less than perfect translations floating around, chances are you might come across some of those on Project Gutenberg, because they're they're in the public domain. No one knows who the translator is, so they just get put on there. So I did read a Victor Hugo piece from Project Gutenberg not long ago. I hadn't been able to get hold of it any other way, so I was glad to be able to read it. However, I did feel that the translation came across as rather clunky. As I read it, it didn't flow like Hugo's prose usually does, and my impression is that that's a translation issue, and it's not been as carefully translated, shall we say, as it could have been. That's just one thing to watch out for. The other thing is, I would generally advise, if there's an option with PDF or Epub on there, to go with the PDF. The reason for that is that sometimes their Epubs, they're fairly hastily formatted, or it certainly seems that way, because when you put them on your e-reader, you get page numbers in the middle of the page. Sometimes the text is jiggled about and you get a bit of text here which should be here. And I've had that issue with Epubs a few times. So now I do choose to download the PDF instead, which I can still read on my Sony e-reader. So that's not a problem. It means I can't increase the size of the text and things like that as easily, but usually it's fine if I just turn it landscape width, it's a readable size. So that's just a few thoughts. I do hope they've been helpful. I mean, with any of these editions, there's nothing wrong with any of them per se. It just depends on what you want. If you're someone who really wants the scholarly approach, you'd go for probably the Oxford, maybe the Penguin. Someone in the middle, you'd pick the Wordsworth. It's a good price point on that one as well. If all you're looking for is just the cheapest print version you can get, again, you're looking at either the Wordsworth or something like the Dover or the Penguin sort of cheaper basic editions. And with your ebooks, you can certainly find several of them for free these days, whether you're looking on a site like Kobo or somewhere like Project Gutenberg, but just be aware that you might not be getting such a highly quality formatted piece from Project Gutenberg. You might have to put up with a few little quirks in the Epub or just go with the PDF. So that's where you can have a look to start off your reading through the classics. As I said, I hope it's been helpful. I'll be back tomorrow with the next video in my series where I will be talking about Samuel Richardson. I look forward to seeing you all then. Bye for now.